Well, thank you everyone for joining us. So, Margaret, what is burnout?
Good question. And I'm sure everybody on here will have different ideas of what it is, but the World Health Organization came up with a definition. And basically it boils down to unmanaged long-term chronic workplace stress is what you'll find, where you'll find burnout. The World Health Organization had 3 categories that they used. You'll see through the work that Amber and I do and what we'll share, we've actually got a 4th category, which we think is really, really important. It's important, I think, to remember that burnout is primarily related to our environment, and that gives us the opportunity to bring about change in that space. So if that's all you take away from what burnout is, I think that's a little neat summary: chronic, unmanaged workplace stress.
Thanks, Margaret. So, what are the 4 dimensions of burnout? So this is a team in Belgium, KU Leuven University, and they actually looked at more than a dozen burnout questionnaires. One of the best known is the Maslach Burnout Inventory, based on work in the 70s, and that's actually what the World Health Organization has based their definition on. So it is a bit out of date. This work was done in 2020, so it's now 5 years ago, but it is very well scientifically validated, and some of you on the call have actually been through the program with us and had your assessment done before. So these 4 elements, you will find that there are going to be different ones for different people and often for different occupations. So someone like a nurse is much more likely to have a high level of emotional impairment, for example, versus someone in an office job is more likely to be seeing a lot more cognitive impairment and potentially some mental distancing, which is when you have that level of cynicism and you just don't see the point of your work. So, Margaret, what are some of the early warning signs?
Yeah, I think it's really, as each of you, I invite you to think about what's going on for you or what's going on for those around you in your teams or families. What does exhaustion look like? And it's that wired but tired, just can't switch off, or waking up at that crazy hour. And that could fit nicely into that exhaustion category. One thing I do want to say is, let's be honest, burnout isn't a total collapse. It can be high functioning exhaustion, for example. So just think about where this sits in the continuum for you. When we look at emotional impairment, it is that overreaction. Didn't close the front door, didn't put the milk back in the fridge, and suddenly the world has ended. And it is that emotional dysregulation that is something that is unfamiliar to you, is out of character for you or the person around you. And that is where we can find that emotional impairment regulation space. When we look at which one is coming up next, cognitive impairment, mental distancing. Well, don't give a fuck. Let's put it out there. What's the point? It is just that total apathy. Why am I doing this? It's just that it is that distance in the cognition clicking into that space. So yeah, it is, what is the point? And if you find yourself in that a little more, what's going on for you? Cognitive impairment. Now I'm going to caveat the mentally foggy place with, there are some things we'll talk about at the end that can have some hormonal impacts in this. And I'll say for perimenopausal, menopausal women, there can be other stuff going on here. But that cognitive impairment, you're sitting in a meeting and you're trying to think of that word that's just not coming to you and it's out of reach. Or you've got that thing that you need to do, but what was that thing that I want to do? And suddenly that clarity of thought, that clarity of process isn't there. And when you start noticing these things coming up in a way that's atypical for you or those around you, those are the early warning signs that we need to start paying attention to.
Yeah, I know from a personal perspective, when I've come close to burnout in the past, for me, it's that don't give a fuck, because I've been lucky to always have jobs where I enjoy them and I'm passionate and like I actually look forward to Monday mornings. And then when I get to a point where I'm like, fuck this, don't want to go or can't be bothered, I'm like, oh, what's going on? Something is not right. So yeah, for me, that's a really, really big warning sign.
And for those who've worked with us, and then for those who haven't, when you do one of the assessments like the BAT-12, it showcases where your risk is. And all of this is aimed at prevention and how can you see those early warning signs so that you don't get down that pathway. And so it is noticing. We're all going to have one where we tip a little bit more. So if you're reality checks.
Oh,
go on.
One second. What ideas do you have for people to be able to notice the signs when they're in the fog? Sean, we will come back to that at the end, but thank you. Please drop questions in the chat.
And it's a really good question. When Amber and I were putting this together, it's like, what are those reality checks? What are those things to make us or to help somebody else stop and pause and go, what is really going on? And this first one I just love is, if you were your own manager, would you be worried about you? It's take yourself out of your own space and use that objective lens. And sometimes that is the easier thing to do than sit in our own space. I laugh when I say this one. Have you celebrated cancelled meetings more than completed work? Now, I love a good cancelled meeting when you get a bit of time back in. Who doesn't? Let's be honest. But it is, when are you doing that all the time? Because that's all you want is more and more cancelled meetings, and actually delivering on something or having a good result is just insignificant. That's the bit when it's just shifted that dial.
I think,
yeah,
just to build on that, if you're not celebrating some sort of progress as you go through, like if you are literally on that treadmill of just do, execute, that is potentially like a very, very early warning sign, because there needs to be at some point that pause to go, oh, look what we've achieved, or what we've learnt, or we've made some progress. And a lot of the time I find that people fall out of the habit of doing that, and that actually gives us motivation to continue. And also just to reflect and look back and go, what's happened? What have I learned? What's changed? Is there anything I want to do differently going forward? And that little pause can be really, really valuable. So to partly answer your question, Sean, you do need to actually remind yourself sometimes to take a pause. And particularly I find with very senior people who perhaps have never had that habit because they've never felt that they should celebrate their achievements, that can then impact the rest of the team too.
Yeah. And maybe going back to, since you did sort of partially address Sean's question there, is that if you were your own manager, would you be worried about you? It's sometimes inviting others for some feedback. If you're not sure what you're seeing and hearing because of that fog, what do others say? What input can they give you? I'm going to ask everybody on the call to just say, if you had to take a rail break tomorrow, what would your first feeling be? That relief of, I get to go away, put my feet up, relax, or, oh shit, I've got so much to do. What am I going to do? Just understanding what is going on for you. If you were offered some downtime and that break, what kicks in? And that's often the early warning signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, I can totally relate, particularly when you're running your own business, right? Or businesses. Jumping through, I've just realized we've got 6 minutes left.
Yeah. So I guess a couple more to think about. If you've got teams or people around you, is somebody in your team acting differently? Has something shifted in their mood, their quality? Are they overcompensating? And even if you've got high performers, are you noticing behavior? I'm fine, it's all good. So just be conscious of those around you who, what are you seeing in them that is different, and do you need to check in with them? And that could be really helpful. No, if you find yourself thinking, is this just life? It's not. And often we normalize it, or it becomes something we put up with until our body will say no more. And then you will get one of these areas kicking in to say, I'm done. So no, it's not. Let's find a way to short circuit it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, because Margaret and I really struggle to keep the content back, we have got a little sprinkle of neuroscience in here. And this is sharing a way of looking at how your body, your nervous system specifically, can move through different states and to share that, yes, burnout is primarily related to the environment, but there is a lot that you can do as an individual, even if you can't change your environment. And your perception of what is going on around you, and specifically your perception of stress, will change how you experience stress. So if you believe all stress is bad for you, you're actually compounding the negative impact of stress. Versus if you can see that stress can have a positive impact, it can push you, it can actually help you to focus, then you're not going to get as much of a negative impact from stress, and you may actually benefit more from it than you expect. So our bodies have this ability to shift between different states based on our perception of stress as well as actual threats. And what I'll share, you would have probably heard of like the fight or flight response. That's this middle section. That's the sympathetic activation. And that is when you are primed to look for tigers, threats on the horizon. And that's helpful because it helps you to focus, and it also will give you a surge of energy, and it will take blood flow out to your extremities, to your body, so that you can fight or flight. You'll also have an increased resistance to pain, tolerance for pain. But you will not have as open a mind. Your field of view will actually narrow, and you will find that if you are chronically in this state, it can have a long-term negative impact. So where you want to be most of the time when you're working is in that top space where you are feeling calm and relatively comfortable, and you can connect with others. So this is where the neuroscience can really help with actually understanding how you do that in your brain and your body, and the impact that it have in the long run. So sometimes you might feel like this. It might just be really hard, things are sad, or you might be overwhelmed, angry, potentially sometimes you're fuming at what is going on. But there are things that you can do. So Margaret, what are some of the things that you would suggest?
So I saw Sean's comment there as agree, being able to have somebody who can call it out. And sometimes it's also reaching out to a trusted person. This is not something that you need to do alone. We have the assessments that you can do if you work with us. There are also amazing EAP programs in organizations and other Lifeline Beyond Blue services. Yes, Amber and I do have a program that you can join. It's also important to recognize when there's a psychologist or a GP involved in that. And I mentioned earlier, you know, hormonal things that are going on. There could be depression, and so there could be other things going on there. So it's sometimes worth that extra little bit of investigation to talk to somebody professional to understand what is going on. If some of these early sort of preventative things haven't worked for you, there are huge amounts of resources out there. It can be overwhelming, and that's where it thrives when we have silence. So it's coming back to supporting each other through this space, and not doing it alone, and having a voice in that space. So there is support out there. It's making sure we tap into it for ourselves and for others.
Yeah, and the earlier, the easier it is. Yeah, it's those small, consistent habits. Yes, there are big things that you can change, but you know, there are stories, and you probably know someone who's potentially rage quit their job. And then later on has kind of thought, maybe there was a different way that I could have handled that. So, you know, it's really looking at what are the steps that I want to take at this point. So please come off mute. Any questions, we would love to hear them. You've also got some information here about the program that we're doing. So this is a simplified group version of the program, which you can do coaching, but this does not include one-to-one coaching. We realize that a lot of people are finding it challenging at the moment. So doing it all in a group means that we can make it a much more reasonable price. Thank you all for joining us. It is wonderful to see the interest and the engagement.
And yeah, open to questions, or anybody that wants to come off mute or put more in the chat. Thank you.
Just a comment from me. Thank you very much for sharing this. It's terrific. And if anyone on the call hasn't done the program, I've participated in it before and found it to be really worthwhile. So I would highly recommend.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to see you.
Lovely to see you.
It is good. And please, just a shout out, whether it's for you or for others, just having an increased awareness at the moment. We are seeing and hearing a lot more around this. And so I think people just need support.
Yeah. Alan.
Keep up. Go, Alan.
I clicked the wrong button. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Sure. Off you go.
Yeah. Just keep up the good work. I really, really resonated as you were going through the 4 aspects, and that I'm just ticking off every one of them. Right? It's done.
Hopefully not too much.
No, I tell you, Amber, every one of them, I've been through every one of those, right? So
in the past.
In the past.
Yeah.
Not now. No, way away from them. They don't come near me. But my point of that being in the fog, I didn't see all that.
Yeah.
Until after the burnout and some recovery, I didn't see it, right? So that it's really important. That's why I'm more passionate again too about your work, and that's why I said, if I see it, I try and call it out for people. Because
Adam said there his takeaway was have a trusted person, and don't wait till you get to that point. Just have a trusted person to say, hey, call me on something that you see as different. And I know from your experience, Sean, it's very valuable to have that.
Yeah, and be that trusted person, like
yes,
for someone.
Just a tap on the shoulder and say, do you need to have a look at this? That's all.
Yeah, there's little conversations, right? Like making a habit of having those social connections. And I find, because I do a lot of stuff virtually, still having that bit of a conversation. Margaret and I are great at making sure we actually still have a bit of a catch up, not just getting straight into work. Because otherwise you can get in that habit of just like getting as much work out as possible, and then you get out of practice of like, actually, how are you? What's going on? But yeah, those social connections, part of what I'm studying in neuroscience at the moment is dementia and how do you prevent it. Social connection is a massive, massive aspect. It is so good for our brain and our body. And I think it's really easy to deprioritize it in the hustle.
Yeah. Some great comments in the chat and a lot resonating. I was just responding to you, Matt, just with people saying, a scary topic and hard to navigate, especially by the time you see it, the house is already burning. And that is just so true. And at that point, trying to navigate your way through it, you haven't got that presence. So this is why we are so passionate about how can we do the prevention? How can we start seeing when the early warning signs are and getting in front of it as much as possible, because it is easier to navigate then than once you're in it. It can be a challenging place to be.